The Oaxacan Old Fashioned. Boy, every time I take a sip of a Oaxacan Old Fashioned, I really ask myself, what do I prefer? The Old Fashioned or the new Old Fashioned? And I gotta say, I really like the new Old Fashioned. The version that's smoky and briny with the mezcal and tequila versus the version with the rye and the bourbon. I don't know, it just seems old, and the newer version just seems fresh and interesting. So we're going to go through the history really of both of those cocktails. I'm going to go through the build of the new Old Fashioned, and then I've got a pro tip for you, which really is about the mouthfeel of an Old Fashioned. So I'm going to give you that in a minute. I'm also going to encourage you, boy, if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, because I've got some Thanksgiving cocktails coming up. And so we got a lot of great stuff. So stay tuned for all of that. This exclusive cocktail club meets weekly to mix drinks, trade tips, and explore the history in every glass. No paywall, no dues, but new content every Tuesday. So the Old Fashioned, basically in the early 19th century, you would go into a bar and you would order a whiskey, or you'd order a whiskey cocktail. And a whiskey cocktail meant they would add bitters and sugar and water to your whiskey, and that was a cocktail. I mean, that was the term. Later on, vermouth and liqueurs would be imported, and they would be added to the cocktail, and other names emerged, the Manhattan, the Martini, you know, all those classic cocktails. But purists would go into a bar, and then they would say, oh, give it to me the old-fashioned way. And that's where the term came from for a simple drink with just the sugar and the bitters and the water. And so that's an old-fashioned. And it really got solidified and, you know, codified as a whiskey or rye old-fashioned, you know, throughout the 20th century, until bartenders really started experimenting with it. One of the things that you can see is it really is an infinite drink. In other words, you can swap in any number of bases with that very basic template, and that gives you your own personalized drink if you want it that way. But I really think that Phil Ward in 2007, working at Death and Company in New York, but he came up with what they call a Oaxacan Old Fashioned by mixing in mezcal and reposado tequila for that 2-ounce base. Okay, so now we're going to go through the build. And so I've got 2 ounces of a mezcal reposado tequila mix in here. This is really, you know, subject to your own taste. You probably could do half and half. You could probably do, you know, all mezcal. You could just do all reposado tequila. And then you've got your sweetening agents. I've got a bar spoon measured out here of agave syrup. And then I've got some sugar, brown sugar. And I'm going to talk about this in a second. Same amount, a bar spoon of that. And then I've got my ice. I'm using these small 1-inch cubes. And then you stir it in the glass and give it a good stir. You know, a good vigorous stir of maybe 20 or 30 turns. And then you give yourself 1 orange piece. And this really adds to the cocktail. You flame it. And that really does help release more of the essence, the oils. And then you express, give it a good, and one thing I forgot to add in, the bitters. So it does have, it calls for mole bitters. I'm using, I have these cocoa bitters, so I'm using that. And here, before I taste it, let me just give it another stir in the glass, even though I've garnished it already. But I'm really giving it that bitters here. And there's the drink. That's a Oaxacan Old Fashioned. Boy, I love that drink. It's smoky, it's briny. It does taste fresh in the sense that it's not, I mean, I don't know, I love whiskey, but I also think the Mezcal is a more modern flavor with its herbaliness and its sharpness, and it's just a new flavor. I mean, you drink it old fashioned, it feels like, Don Draper. It feels like the late 20th century. This seems like the 21st century. And let me just say something here, and this is my pro tip, which is I use 2 bar spoons of sweetener, one a liquid sweetener, and one I use turbinado sugar or brown sugar, something with large crystals like that. It sits in the glass, and I find as the cube melts and as the whole drink evolves, I like the crunchiness. And I think most people like that mouthfeel of that crunchy flavor. And so that's my pro tip. Don't use, and I also find that many bartenders will only tell you to use 1 cube. I don't know, I think that's a stiff drink. If you really want something a little, drier, certainly use less sugar. But I think the whole thing is enhanced by, maybe 2 stingy bar spoons, one liquid sugar and 1 dry sugar. And I think that's just a delicious drink. Anyways, like I said, I encourage everybody to make this one. I think the mezcal and tequila really were one time viewed as, Mexican spirits, but now they're really American. The same sense that whiskey or rye was American back in the 19th century. These are the modern American spirits. Everybody really gravitates towards these two, I think, as sort of forward-thinking spirits. And so I think it really works well in the drink, culturally, but it's just a great taste. You got that strong herbaliness, you got the smokiness balanced by the sweetness. I love this drink. Anyways, there you have it for this week on Tuesday Night Cocktail Club. As I mentioned, we're going to have some great Thanksgiving cocktails coming up. So, hit that subscribe button. And, this is a great drink to share with your friends and family. And thanks for tuning in.